Welcome to A Brief Pause, where we cover a wide variety of pet topics, including health and wellness, training, and we go rogue sometimes. And today we're going super rogue. Today we're going to talk about cloning your pets. This has been around for a minute, but I'll bet that most of you don't know a whole lot about it. So I wanted to find out more. And we're going to talk to Melain from Viagen Pets today, who's going to give us kind of the 411. Welcome, Melain. Thank you so much for being here today and elaborating on this topic that I'm sure is getting more and more popular these days, but the average person probably knows very little about. So I'll let you kind of further introduce yourself.
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Melain Rodriguez, and I'm the client service manager for Viagen Pets. And who we are is we're a pet cloning company. So we do genetic preservation and cloning for dogs and cats and horses too.
And who's your friend, the beautiful Bengal looking kitty cat? If you don't know, people that are just listening, we are also on YouTube. So if you want to see this adorable cat, get on there. But who do we have in the background here?
This is Benji. So Benji is a Bengal cat. So he's got leopard spots and tiger stripes, and he happens to be a clone cat too. So he's just a great, wonderful cat, and he looks very much like the original cat that he was cloned from.
He is beautiful. So I know that pet cloning has been popular in, say, South Korea and stuff for a long time, where it's very normal and average there. But I would think over here, it's still something quite new to people, even though it's been around a moment. But I would say just in general conversation, it would be something that would perk people's ears up because it's not as prevalent or as common or whatever you would like to say. So why would the cloning sort of start or be more popular in the beginning with equine versus house pets?
So the livestock industry has been really forward thinking for decades. They've been doing assisted reproductive technology in that area for decades. So in vitro fertilization, embryo transfer, those kinds of things are widely done with livestock. So the reason you would clone a cow or a pig is typically for breeding purposes. If you have a high value animal, whose semen is very valuable, for example, then you clone that bull, and the clone bull has those same genetics. So the semen of that clone bull is going to be very valuable. So it's really more of a monetary reason why you're going to clone livestock. But so that's the main reason it was done early on and earlier than for pets. And then when we were cloning livestock initially, we were banking cells for pets as well, but we weren't doing any cloning for pets. So now we've got pets or pet owners that have had these cells stored for decades. And now they're so happy to hear that we're cloning pets now. And the cloning is going so well that we're no longer cloning livestock. We're only cloning dogs and cats and horses. There's been such a demand. So it was really demand from our clients, our pet clients, who wanted a place that wasn't South Korea. They wanted to have it done here in the US. So we're the only cloning company for pets that's in the United States.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't realize people had been banking the cells like that. I had heard, now that you're saying, I had heard on the equine side, I think I remember hearing that people would do it with prize racing horses as well. Is that still common? Is it legal in horse racing? I don't know about that world at all.
So it's very common. Well, it's cloning's never going to be really a common thing, but I will say it's more prevalent in the horse industry, but not race horses. So the jockey club that governs and sort of oversees the race horsing, they will not allow a cloned horse to race.
Yeah, I was
So
curious about that.
yeah, so they won't race, but cloned horses can compete in the Olympics. They can compete in other activities like rodeo. So a lot of people are cloning. You could clone a great racehorse, but you could use it for something else. And that's exactly what the president of our company did. He had a great racehorse, cloned it, and then that cloned horse is now a stallion and is breeding these and producing these wonderful horses that can do things like barrel racing in rodeo. So that's a cool thing. And then also we've worked just recently with the San Diego Zoo and revive and restore to clone an endangered species of horse, so a Przewalski's horse. And these cells for this horse, amazingly, were preserved 40 years ago. So before any mammal had been cloned, they had the foresight to preserve these cells for a horse whose species was declining. And we were able to successfully clone that horse, and it just turned a year old. And it's just amazing. So we do some conservation work as well, which is a great use of this technology, I think.
Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it being used that way. So to take that further, then if you use a clone and then breed, does it affect future breeding of that animal at all?
It does not. So that's a common question we get is, can a clone animal reproduce? And it absolutely can. It's going to have the same breeding potential that the original animal had. And in a lot of situations, even the horse, for example, may have been gelded for a particular reason, or the dog or cat may have been spayed or neutered. So they weren't able to pass on those genes. And then you have an exceptional animal that now as a clone has that ability to breed and to grow those genes and make great offspring.
That's interesting. So to swing back to the pet world, you said that people had been saving cells. I was really interesting. I didn't know that they were doing that. I wouldn't have even thought, how do you do that? Maybe people's veterinarians would tell them that that's an option. I'm not sure. Um, but now, I have to stop using the word common because it's still not common, but sort of where are we at now that you say that company has switched to almost exclusively house pets? Um, what are some of the most common pets? Is it dogs over cats? Do people clone other breeds of pets, bunnies and gerbils and things like that?
So we do clone more dogs than any other species. So that's our most common species that we clone. And then the next would be horses, and then cats after that. And so how the process works is it all starts with the veterinarian taking skin biopsy samples from the animal to be cloned. And it's a very simple skin punch biopsy. So the vet will just anesthetize the local area and take the biopsy sample, and then those come to us in a biopsy kit that we provide to the client. And then from that tissue sample, we grow millions of cells in culture. And then that process takes about 2 to 3 weeks, and we'll cultivate millions of these cells. And then those cells can be cryopreserved. So that's the first step in cloning any animal, is to preserve these somatic cells. And these cells can be stored for decades. So, cloning is very expensive, and we'll get into that pricing, I'm sure, at some point, but we do expect the price to go down at some point. But I would say right now, about 90% of our customers are just preserving those cells. So they might move forward with cloning right away. They might just keep those cells banked for years and years, or some move right into cloning immediately. So, but most are just preserving those cells for now.
So what's the biggest risks, or, what are some of the things that can come up with a cloned animal? I'm sure there's something that's common affliction of a cloned animal.
And that's really a misconception about cloned animals, is that they're not healthy, or that they have a different health than a conventionally bred animal. And I think that all goes back to Dolly the sheep. So when you talk about cloning, if people have heard about cloning, then they've heard usually about Dolly the sheep, and she was the first mammal that was cloned. So she did live a shorter lifespan than normal. She had some health issues, but all the issues that she had were not related to cloning. But because she was a clone and she was so famous, it sort of gave cloning a bad name. But Dolly was cloned later again, several times, and those other sheep that were cloned from her cells lived a normal lifespan, they were healthy, and they were studied throughout their life and had a healthy, normal lifespan. And that's what we see from the thousands of animals that we have cloned, is they don't have any different health status from a conventionally bred animal. They're going to live a normal lifespan. Now they're not without risks. They're not Superman. They're going to be prone to any illness or disease that the original animal may have had. And that's another common question that we get is, if a dog has a disease, like let's say cancer, if the original dog died of cancer, will the clone dog have cancer? And the answer is maybe. We don't know if the cancer was genetically linked, if there was a reason genetically why that dog had cancer, then that clone dog has those same genetics, just like an identical twin. So it's going to have that genetic predisposition to develop that at some point in its life. So, you wouldn't want to clone a dog that died at 2 years of age from a disease that was genetic, because you're just going to have that potentially happen again. So we do counsel the clients when, we want to know the health history of the animal, how long did they live? And because you don't want to produce a clone dog that's going to have a shortened lifespan because of a genetic reason.
Let me ask you this, because I'm sure this has got to be fairly common. The genetics are the same, but the personality is not. How aware are people of that, or do they end up getting disappointed? I'm sure you explain that up front. It's not going to be your pet that passed away. It's genetically the same, but it's not the same animal. Do people really get that, or do they end up disappointed anyway?
So we do let the client know that this is not a reincarnation of their pet. The clone dog is not going to know who they are. It's not going to know, already know these things. Although we do hear some amazing stories and some similarities that we just can't explain. So the best way that I explain it to clients is that this is an identical genetic twin that's born at a different time. So just like human identical twins, their DNA is the same. But who they are, their personality can be very different. So, but we do find that things like intelligence and temperament, those are measurable things that are known to have a strong genetic component. So that's what I usually will tell the client, is that temperament and intelligence, those are things that are going to be the most similar. Personality is that mixture of genetics and environment. So if they're raised in a similar environment, then they could have a similar personality, but I would never tell someone that this is going to be the exact same personality of the dog that you originally had. And I think a healthy way to look at a cloned animal, and this is what our clients will tell us, that it sort of feels like an offspring of the original animal. You look at that clone dog and all the cells in its body came from that original dog. So it feels like an offspring. And I think that's a really healthy way to think about what a cloned animal is. So you're not disappointed. You're not expecting this exact same dog and a dog to know you immediately. And another thing that is quite common is that a lot of clients never had the original dog as a puppy. We clone a lot of dogs that were rescues. So they were 2 or 3 years old before they ever were in that home. And so the client is expecting this adult dog personality. And when they get the puppy that's 8 weeks old and they're full of energy, and they don't remember the original dog being like that. So that's some feedback that we've gotten, is they were just surprised that the puppy was a puppy. So I do try to warn people that, this is going to be a young puppy that is not going to be housebroken, and it's not going to be trained. And so there's a lot of work that's going to need to go into it to get it up to where your adult dog was.
That is interesting. I also find it kind of interesting as someone that would rescue and then clone, because there's two very different ways of coming into a pet. But I gotta back up, and you said there's some weird things we can't explain. Give me some funky stories.
I've heard numerous times things like the clone dog has the same favorite toy that the original dog had. Out of all the toys it had, it went to the toy box, the doggy toy box, and picked out that one toy that the original dog loved. Or the clone dog doesn't like this same person that the original dog didn't like. Like the
That's
original
so
dog was
weird.
person, and then the clone dog barked at that person and didn't like them. Or there was a favorite spot where the dog always liked to sleep, and the clone dog wants to sleep in that same spot. So those, are they things that people are just want to see? Maybe, it could be that they're reading into it more. But who knows? We don't know. There is some people who believe in cellular memory, that there's some memories that are held within the cells, and we just don't know. But I've heard amazing stories over and over again. But again, I caution clients not to expect those kinds of things typically.
Yeah, of course. You got to set your expectations in a reasonable
Right.
place. And then when those things happen, that's just exciting and you can
Yeah.
see into it what you may. Well, thank you so much for sharing this information today. This is such an exciting, interesting field that I just can't wait to see what it keeps doing. I just love science in general. So I'm sure people feel all different kinds of way about this sort of thing. Like anytime a new science comes into the world, especially if you're dealing with genetics and living things, it can be quite controversial. So I appreciate you sharing some more information because it's just not that well known or common. So before we go, how can people find you?
So there's a lot of great information on our website, and that's viagenpets.com. There's emergency information. So if your pet does pass away and you haven't preserved any samples, this tells the vet exactly step by step what to do. So that's all right there on the website. We have Instagram, Facebook, all the social medias, and lots of good information and great photos there as well.
Great. And I will leave links to that in the descriptions, both on YouTube and on the podcast, which will be broadcasted out to multiple platforms, and it'll be on all of those. Thank you so much for being here today and sharing all this amazing information with us.
All right, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok if you're not already, and join the community. Let us know what you think. We'd love your feedback and your likes and your subscriptions, but most of all, your ideas. What else do you want to hear and see and learn about pets? Till next time.